This offseason just keeps getting crazier and crazier for the Philadelphia Eagles, as it seems they have huge news breaking almost every single day. And this was an offseason for the Eagles where they were expected to quote-unquote fall apart, according to many fans around the NFL. And sure, they have lost some key players from last season, but despite this, the Eagles are still finding ways to keep many of their key guys in free agency. And just yesterday, we got some absolutely insane news regarding that. And we're going to talk all about that in this video today. But before we do that, make sure you go down and subscribe to the channel for more consistent Philadelphia Eagles content coming throughout this entire offseason. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications. And now with that being said, let's get into the video. As the NFL free agency period began, it was expected that the Eagles were going to lose a lot of their key guys from last season, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because a lot of those guys were free agents, and the Philadelphia Eagles were a team that had limited cap space entering that free agency period. And these projections started to come true at the start of free agency. They started to lose some of their key guys on the defensive side of the ball. They lost Javon Hargrave to the 49ers. They lost TJ Edwards to the Bears. They lost Kaiser White to the Cardinals. They lost Marcus Epps to the Raiders. You know, and if you've been following the Philadelphia Eagles from the end of the season until now, you would know that they were expected to lose a lot of these guys, but it's okay and not to panic because the Eagles have a plan for how they're going to handle this entire situation. But of course, you got your guys, you know, that these people that go on Twitter and they're like, oh, the Eagles are falling apart. Oh, the Eagles suck. They're not going to make the playoffs next season. Well, guess what? The Eagles have a plan for how they're going to fill out their defense this offseason. And one of the first moves they made regarding that was a move that I don't think a lot of Eagles fans, including myself, expected. And that move was a couple days ago, the Philadelphia Eagles and Howie Roseman went out and they re-signed star cornerback James Bradberry to a 3-year deal worth $38 million that can go up to $44 million in incentives with $20 million in guaranteed money. And at the time, you know, James Bradberry was a guy who I 100% thought was going to leave for some other team in free agency because I simply didn't think the Eagles had the money, but the Eagles were able to get James Bradberry on a discount. He went out, he talked to Josina Anderson of ESPN, and he said that he wanted to come play for Philadelphia. He wanted to come back to the team. He actually took a pay cut to remain in Philadelphia, and now he's going to be here for 3 more years. And this was 100% at this point the biggest news the Eagles got regarding the defensive side of the ball this offseason. But however, this news did put the future of another key Eagles player in question, and that player is Darius Slay. As just a few days prior to James Bradberry re-signing with the Eagles, Darius Slay had gotten permission to seek a trade from the Philadelphia Eagles because the Eagles and Slay hadn't been able to come to terms on a contract extension, which is what Slay wanted. And of course, he had a huge cap hit moving into the next season, and the Eagles have a limited amount of cap space, and they needed to free that money up by either restructuring or extending Darius Slay. It seemed they couldn't come to terms on something, so they gave Slay permission to seek a trade. And now fast forward to a couple days later, after the Bradberry re-signing, it was seeming more and more unlikely that Slay would remain an Eagle. And it seemed like this notion came true yesterday when it was announced that the Philadelphia Eagles were expected to cut star cornerback Darius Slay. And there were multiple reports and tweets that came out that pretty much confirmed this. Adam Schefter was one of those guys, definitely one of the most reliable sources when it comes to NFL news. He put out a tweet that said basically that the Eagles were expected to cut Darius Slay after failing to come to terms on a contract extension. And Darius Slay and his wife, Jennifer Slay, both put out tweets basically saying, thank you, Philadelphia. Let's see where we go next. Goodbye. Pretty much is what they said. So it seemed like a foregone conclusion. Slay was going to be gone and the Eagles had to move in another direction for their other cornerback spot opposite James Bradberry next season. But as the day progressed, the unexpected happened. As it was expected that Darius Slay's release would be announced when the new league year began at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and the Philadelphia Eagles didn't go out and officially put out a statement saying that they had cut Darius Slay. So you may start to think, well, what's going on? And then you get reports coming out as the hours progress that they're saying the Eagles might not be trying to let Darius Slay go. They might be trying to work something out behind the scenes as they hadn't officially cut him yet. There was a John Clark report that came out that the Eagles did not officially cut Slay and they were trying to work something out to bring Slay back to the Eagles in the future. So then you start to have a little inkling of hope as an Eagles fan that Darius Slay might be able to return. And more reports continue to come out. Josina Anderson said, from what I'm hearing per source, it sounds like the Eagles are having a hard time letting go of cornerback Darius Slay at this moment and still wish they could keep him. Let's see if GM Howie Roseman can find another rabbit in his hat, so to speak. No matter what, it's a worthy attempt. And then John Clark responded to this tweet by Josina Anderson saying, I believe Darius Slay wants to stay. I believe they're trying to see if they can find a way. We will see. So obviously, with all these tweets coming out, it started to raise some eyebrows, and it was starting to seem more and more like Darius Slay could return to the Eagles somehow in 2023, and Howie Roseman was working his magic once again. And all these reports eventually led to a late night bombshell from Adam Schefter saying the Eagles never officially released cornerback Darius Slay today, and now one source said that the Pro Bowl cornerback is expected to stay with the Eagles. It's not final, but that's the way it is looking right now. A new deal could be in the works. And then shortly after this Schefter report came out, Darius Slay took to Twitter himself, and he said, "Back like I never left, run it back with the Eagles emoji." So Darius Slay pretty much confirmed that he will be back in Philadelphia next season. And the only thing I can really say about that is, what a 180. That was absolutely the most crazy turnaround I think I've seen in one singular day. It was just so interesting to watch that whole situation play out, from Darius Slay supposedly getting cut to now somehow the Eagles finding a way, it looks like, to bring him back. Now, nothing has been agreed to officially yet. Maybe by the time you're watching this video, something has, but it seems like Slay's going to be back 100%, and I'm just super glad to have him back. I definitely really enjoyed having Slay here in Philadelphia, and he's obviously been such a great player for the Philadelphia Eagles in his 3 seasons here. He's been one of the best cornerbacks in the league. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler with the Eagles, a 5-time Pro Bowler overall with the Lions and Eagles. He had 7 interceptions with the Eagles, and he formed the #1 cornerback duo in the entire NFL with James Bradberry, who now obviously he's also back. So the #1 cornerback duo in the league of Darius Slay and James Bradberry returns for the Philadelphia Eagles next season. And something else that's really underrated about it is Darius Slay became a leader of the Philadelphia Eagles and the Philadelphia Eagles defense, especially that secondary, and he also became a first-time captain last season, which he referred to as one of the highlights and best moments of his entire career. And obviously, a lot of the guys, like Darius Slay, is a highly regarded person, and he's highly regarded as a teammate, and people love to play with him. So obviously that can only help the locker room chemistry with now the news that Darius Slay is going to be returning to the Philadelphia Eagles in 2023. So, obviously it's feel good. Obviously you love to have a player as good as Darius Slay back, but the real question is, how does this affect the salary cap situation? And how does it affect the Eagles to go out and re-sign some other guys, like, for example, CJ Gardner-Johnson, or bring in some other free agents to the team? When it was reported that he was cut, the cut was designated for post-June 1st, which basically what that ended up doing in terms of the cap was it was going to save $3.7 million in cap right now, and then after June 1st, the Eagles would have saved $17.5 million in cap space, but they also would have to eat $8.6 million in dead cap, and then the next following year, they would also have to eat around $12 million in dead cap space, I believe it was. But turns out Darius Slay was never cut, and he's still on the last year of his contract. He's still on the current deal that he was with for the Eagles these past 3 seasons. So it's not like the Eagles now have to go out and sign him to a completely new deal. He's still on the deal he was currently on. And now that it seems like Slay's going to be returning, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either they're going to restructure his current deal, or they're going to give him a contract extension. And both of these things save a significant amount of money. With a restructure, that allows the Eagles to save $12.2 million in cap space right now. And with an extension, that allows the Eagles to save $13 million in cap space right now. So right now, the Eagles save more money by either restructuring or extending Darius Slay. Now, obviously, the details, as I'm recording this, have not come out yet. Again, maybe they came out at the point that you're watching this video. But the Eagles have found a way to spin this to where they kept James Bradberry, and they're able to save more money initially right in this moment than they were able to do when they released Darius Slay supposedly yesterday. So for those concerned that Slay's return means that the Eagles still can't go out and get CJ Gardner-Johnson, you should not be worried, because the Eagles still have some money to work with here, and it could actually mean that CJ is more likely to come back than ever. All the reports that came out yesterday suggested the Eagles were really pushing hard to try to get something done with CJ Gardner-Johnson soon. There was reports saying, obviously they're still making a strong push, and there was reports saying they're trying to get a long-term deal finalized shortly. And CJ Gardner-Johnson also took to Twitter yesterday when Darius Slay was supposedly cut, and he said that Darius Slay was his mentor last year and helped him elevate his game to a new level, which, number one, speaks volumes of Darius Slay as a teammate, Darius Slay as a person, and how valuable he is in that Eagles locker room. But 2, it shows how much CJ Gardner-Johnson loves to play with him. And now with Darius Slay and also James Bradberry being back, CJ Gardner-Johnson has no excuse to not come back and try to run this whole thing back in terms of the whole secondary besides Marcus Epps. So why wouldn't CJ Gardner-Johnson want to come back to a secondary with players like Darius Slay and James Bradberry, guys that he played with, is familiar with last year? Maybe he's willing to take a little less to come back and run it back with his guys. Overall, this whole situation, has got to be one of the more unique situations I can remember recently happening. But Howie Roseman has just been absolutely masterful during this entire process. You know, pulling this off with thinking you're going to have to release one of your best players to now seeming like he's going to be coming back. That was an unbelievable move for him to be able to pull that off and save money in the process. But think about what else the Philadelphia Eagles have done this offseason. They were able to bring Fletcher Cox back yesterday, which I think is a very good move. They brought him back on a one-year, $10 million deal. And Fletcher Cox has become an all-time Eagles legend and has been a staple of the Eagles franchise and their organization for a while now. You know, obviously he spent his entire career here after being drafted in 2012, and Fletcher Cox has just been amazing for this Eagles team. He's had a lot of success here. Obviously he's a 6-time Pro Bowler, and he's also a leader in that Eagles locker room as well, alongside guys like Darius Slay. And Fletcher Cox took a pay cut to remain in Philadelphia. It was said that other teams offered him more money, and he decided that he wanted to stay in Philadelphia, so he took a hometown discount to return to Philly. And another leader of the Eagles locker room is also returning next season in Brandon Graham, as he signed a one-year, $6 million deal to return to the Eagles. And obviously, you know, he still gives you some pretty good production. Last season, he had 11 sacks, which was a career high. And he also took a discount to stay here in Philadelphia, as he definitely could have got more money on the open market as well. They brought back Jason Kelce, who again, another leader on that Eagles team and a franchise legend, and obviously very crucial to the success the Eagles have had during his tenure here, and he's become the best center in the NFL, no doubt. And they also kept James Bradberry, like I've previously mentioned, and he took a pay cut to stay here as well. And it still seems like the Eagles could keep CJ Gardner-Johnson, and obviously they found a way to keep Darius Slay as well. So the Philadelphia Eagles have become a destination. Players are taking pay cuts and taking less money to come back and play for this team because they know this team has a good chance of winning and they want to be here. And this is something that, you know, a lot of NFL fans, excluding some Eagles fans, but a lot of NFL fans didn't see coming. People thought the Eagles were going to quote-unquote fall apart and lose a bunch of their players. And while they have lost some, they've also brought back plenty of others, and they're taking pay cuts to do it. And the Eagles still clearly have the most talented offense in the NFC and one of the most talented overall rosters in the NFC, and they're not done yet. They're going to keep doing the impossible. In a situation that was seemingly stacked against the Eagles, Howie Roseman was unfazed, and he's gone out and he's worked his magic to bring back all these guys to the Eagles roster. And now it seems like the Eagles could potentially be poised for another Super Bowl run in 2023, depending on how they handle the rest of this offseason. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this video, guys. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, talking about Darius Slay's return to the Eagles and other things regarding Eagles free agency. I'll most likely be live a little later today, so stay tuned for that. Subscribe to the channel for more consistent Philadelphia Eagles content. Drop a like on the video to help push it out to other people. If you want to watch more Philadelphia Eagles content, you can go watch this video right here. And with that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this video, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.